The Torah portion this week is taken from the book of Genesis, the section of Toldot, and it begins with the words, Ve'ele Toldot Yitzchak. This is the story of Isaac, the son of Abraham. And it goes on to tell the story of the birth of the twins, Jacob and Esau, and the story of their lives. Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to my Torah talk this weekend. You can see we're here in our temple's beautiful home, the Saban Theater. How we miss being together with you at our Shabbat services and special events. But the day is not too far away when we'll be gathering together again. And we hope that'll be very, very soon. We pray that it will be sooner and sooner than we can even imagine. This week's Torah portion is the portion of Toldot from the book of Genesis. And it begins with the patriarchal story of Isaac, the generations of Isaac. Isaac, as you know, was the second of the patriarchs. First was Abraham, then Isaac. And Isaac was that link between the other two major links, Abraham and Jacob. He was the link between the generations that enabled Judaism to continue. And this is a wonderful story with a lot of deep and important lessons for us to take about sibling rivalry, about conflict within a family. And I'm going to talk towards the end a little more about how it relates to each and every one of us. But on its own level, the story is wonderful, and we know it's repeated in many family situations. The Torah begins with a prediction from God to Rebekah, who is pregnant and has a conflict between two children in her womb, and she can feel them struggling. And the Torah says, Shnei goyim bevitnech u'shnei le'umim me'ayich yiparedu. There are two nations, Rebekah, in your womb, and two great entities will come forward from your innards, and one will conflict with the other, and the younger one, the older one, will serve the younger one. This is the idea of what we refer to in biblical commentary terms as the reversal of the laws of primogeniture. In the ancient Near East, the firstborn male inherited virtually everything. The other male children got very little, and the daughters, what do they say in New York? Forget about it. They got next to nothing, if nothing at all. And the reality is that these two brothers, Esau and Jacob, conflicted. They were struggling from their infancy, and they had two distinct and different styles. Esau was physically strong. He was the hunter. He was the one who brought meat home to consume. And Jacob was the more simple one, the studious one, the tent dweller. So they had two distinct personalities and identities. And if you remember in the story, there is the blessing of the birthright. And the birthright, of course, was the idea that you would succeed in the destiny of your ancestor, of your patriarch. And one day, Jacob was cooking some red lentil porridge, and his brother Esau came back from hunting, a very intense hunting trip, and he was starved. And he said, "Give me some of that red porridge." And Jacob said, "Well, would you sell me your birthright? You're the eldest by a few seconds. You were born first. Will you sell me your birthright for this porridge that I'm cooking?" And he said, "Yeah, of course, I'm starving. I'm about to die. What does a birthright matter to me anyway?" And this indicated that he held in very low regard the idea of the birthright. And in doing so, he essentially sold off his birthright for a bowl of porridge. It was that meaningless to him. But this was deception on the part of Jacob nonetheless, because he knew his brother would be coming back famished, undoubtedly, and here he took advantage of him in this negotiation. A little later, we learn the story of the blessing, and that blessing was given by the dying patriarch Isaac. Before his death, he wanted to bless his two sons. And the mom, Rebekah, felt that the younger son was best suited to carry on the tradition of Abraham and Isaac, teaching monotheism, the belief in one God to all of humanity, and that the elder brother, even though he was entitled to the birthright blessing as the firstborn, that he was not well suited for that job. And that's, again, the reversal of primogeniture, that it's not the one by circumstance of their rank of birth, but who's best suited to do the job. And that's an important lesson as well, that we shouldn't allow convention or whatever established norm society might set. It's the person who's best suited for the mission. And all of us have God-given talents in our own unique ways we can contribute to the advancement of humanity and people's spiritual growth. Well, at any rate, she played a deception with her younger son Jacob. She dressed him up and she put goat skins on his arms so he would be very hairy like his older brother. He was smooth-skinned, and she put these goat skins on. And the father, who was blind at this point and about to give the blessing, he said the famous words, the hands are the hands of my son Esau, but the voice is the voice of my son Jacob. He knew what was going on. He knew he was being intentionally deceived. I have to believe that. And actually, what he recognized as well is that his older son Esau, as talented of a hunter as he was not the best suited to carry on this important mission of bringing the light of the Torah and the light of monotheism to humanity. And so he played along, and he did bless both sons, but the blessing of the birthright remained with the younger one, with Jacob. You know, later on, after the anger had subsided, Jacob had to flee because his older brother Esau wanted to kill him for stealing the blessing. They were reunited many, many years later. And one of the great biblical commentators, E.A. Spicer, says, you know, the dad, Isaac, he really loved his son Esau, who was the hunter. And he showed him great kindness and love and compassion. And that enabled him, many years later, when the two brothers were to meet again, to reunite lovingly and not kill one another and not do battle against each other. And so he gave him the capacity of compassion and forgiveness by showing him love for the talents that he possessed. And that's a lesson in parenting too. We have to give our kids support and encouragement for the talents that they have, not for what we want to fit them into a box that they were never meant to be placed in. So please think about that in terms of parenting. But there's another really important lesson. If these two brothers could reconcile, how about each and every one of us? Yeah, I'm talking about American politics. Those of us who are in the Biden camp and those of us who are in the Trump camp, we have to learn to get along in this society. We have to learn to be forgiving and live with one another. We have a mission. The mission is to bring the light of compassion and decency to the world. And if we can't learn to hear what the other is saying, we'll never achieve it. So let's take from the lessons of the Torah to heart in terms of how we live and learning to communicate and accept one another with our differences and our disagreements, and to act from a place of love and understanding. Shabbat Shalom.